And now for more, standing by, retired Air Force Special Operations Commander and national security expert Glenn Ignazio, and former U.S. Ambassador to NATO and former Special Representative for Ukraine, Kurt Volker. Welcome to you both. Great to have you in.
Good morning.
Great. Thanks, Bill.
The big move and the timing of it, many will question why wasn't this done earlier, and even now. First to you, Glenn. We just heard Logan's report. Only 8 have enough English to complete the course. It seems like this is going to be quite some time.
Yes, it will. I mean, if you're a trained pilot, you're talking about at least another year to be very fluent in this aircraft. It's very demanding, completely different than what they've flown, and it's much more advanced. You know, the MiG-29s were available from Poland a year and a half plus ago. It would be great to get them a weapon system that they can use right now. But you're looking at a long time, and you're looking at a very few pilots that are going to excel in this aircraft to be able to actually take it to the battlefield appropriately.
Now, Kurt, we know they're coming to Ukraine via Denmark and Netherlands, but is there any concern about fears of a, possible, Article 5 situation escalation, how Russia's going to see this move?
There really shouldn't be. Russia is already fighting with everything it's got, trying to eliminate Ukraine. And they're not surprised that the West is giving them military equipment so the Ukrainians can defend themselves. We place a lot of concern just on the question you raised. Is this going to provoke Russia somehow? Russia isn't looking at it like that at all. Russia thinks it is already fighting a war in order to take over Ukraine with everything it's got. This is nothing new from Russia's perspective.
Some people say this just prolongs it, though, and we should be looking for off-ramps. We should be looking for, a possibility to not have this be a never-ending war. Glenn, what's your reaction to folks who are looking for some diplomacy?
I completely agree. I wish that was a way we were going. I mean, originally it was Russia against Ukraine and the invasion, and really everything has expanded over the last couple of years to say that it's now Russia against NATO and everything else. So it's expanded in that propaganda, and it's expanded as far as that mentality because everybody jumping on board. But the best thing would be to negotiate some kind of peace and come to some kind of agreement, because on the ground, with the trench warfare and everything going on, it is almost a stalemate. So the best way would be to get to some kind of peace arrangement, and it would be great to see the United States forward in that kind of negotiation versus just supplying weapons. It'd be a great way to get it and save lives.
As the former U.S. ambassador to NATO, and we saw the summit in Lithuania, Kurt, what is your take on where this goes? People don't want to see this dragging on and on and on. There are, innocent lives being lost every single day.
Well, there are, but we have to be clear-eyed about what's happening. Russia is attacking Ukraine and killing people, and Ukraine's defending itself. If someone were attacking the United States and they took over all of New England and half of Florida and then said, okay, let's negotiate, I don't think Americans would take kindly to that. I think we'd be fighting back. And that's exactly what the Ukrainians are doing, trying to take back their territory. And in terms of the stalemate, I agree with those who said we should have done this type of equipment and other types of equipment much earlier. What's dragging it on is the failure to provide things to Ukraine as they need them or even before they need them. We should have prevented the war. We should have deterred it. And then we should have gotten them more and better equipment faster. You're right. It is terrible what's happening right now. But who are you going to negotiate with? Putin? Putin is not going to agree to get out of Ukraine or to give up on his objective of taking it over. So I think we do have to give the Ukrainians what they need and help them take their territory back.
Also, there's a GOP presidential debate next week. No doubt the war will be a major topic. We'll see what the candidates there say about what they would do if they were to win in 2024 about ending this. Let's talk a little bit about the grain deal. Obviously, a huge deal that collapsed, but the first ship to leave Ukraine since the grain deal collapsed has nearly reached its port in Turkey. Russia is attacking Ukraine's grain depot. We know that this is, going to impact a lot of people. So where does this stand, Glenn, now? And how is Russia still using this as leverage with the Black Sea?
Yeah, I mean, Odessa being the main port, and actually if you drive from Odessa to Mykolaiv, which is one of the other ports, there's grain silos that are throughout that entire area. So this humanitarian corridor, which is what the Ukrainians have labeled it, was to get these ships that have been stuck for their almost 2 years out and be able to get to Turkey. Some of these don't have grain on board, but it's just trying to get the ships out. So that one that's a Hong Kong, or I believe it's a Hong Kong flagship, made it to Istanbul. But yes, I mean, if you take a look at the grain, the silos, and also the farmlands that are heavily mined, it's going to be a direct impact to, one, Ukraine generating revenue for them to sustain their war, but also it's really a global impact for the food supply, which is the biggest concern. So that's the thing that we really need to watch, and I hope that Russia would let that go for actually many more countries outside of Ukraine.
It's a major concern, Kurt. These are people in poverty-raged countries that depend on this, and it's a whole other story outside of the deaths in Ukraine that we're seeing as a result. How do we rectify this situation? Where's the pressure come from for Russia to do that, to change course?
I think what the United States needs to do is focus on freedom of navigation. It's what we do in Asia to keep goods flowing to the United States and through the South China Sea. And for some reason, we have gone along with Russia putting a bottleneck or a chokehold on navigation in the Black Sea. Russia is literally threatening to attack third-party vessels carrying commercial goods in international waters in the Black Sea, something that anywhere else in the world the U.S. would find unacceptable. Now, because they have pulled out of the grain deal, which was a deal that allowed grain to flow but was an implicit agreement that nothing else would. Now that they've pulled out, I think it is the time for Ukraine to do exactly what it's doing, start opening up these waters and calling Russia's bluff or challenging Russia. Are you really going to attack Chinese vessels, Panamanian vessels in international waters? I don't think Russia's going to do that, and I think we should be trying to provide some security for shipping in the Black Sea.
Speaking of seas, and our final question, Glenn, it comes to you. Russian and Chinese naval ships crossed international waters. We have Japan's defense ministry saying it actually scrambled fighter jets in response to these Russian aircrafts in the Sea of Japan, East China Sea, and this is what separates Japan and South Korea. So a world away from Ukraine, we have another issue that's bubbling up here.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you're seeing these two fronts that are continuing on. The Chinese have been aggressive in their nature, both for penetrating into their air defensive identification zone in Taiwan, but they've also actually aggressively intercepted our aircraft, cutting in front of them and causing a great danger to U.S. personnel and U.S. aircraft. So the idea of them pressing into Japan is another harassment. I think that it's definitely something that's checking the response times and the capabilities that we have, which is something that they normally do. But this harassment throughout the entire East Asia and so forth is a typical tactic. And the more that they can combine their operations between China and Russia, the better for them.
And probably a point of discussion at Camp David with the president and Japanese prime minister and South Korean president as well for the next few days. Glenn Ignazio, Kurt Volker, gentlemen, good to have you in. Thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you, Bianca.
Thank you.
Thank you.